right, the eagerly awaited moment is here. The ANC Youth League is launching its first ever podcast. And how to do it best, we're going to look at myriad of activities, myriad of political issues, from gender-based violence, as you've heard, some of the grievances that were raised. We're going to look at some of the political issues that have been bedeviling our province, including the divisions, deep-rooted divisions that have been there for some time. We're going to look at how the leadership is now dealing with them. The ANC Youth League is it still the powerhouse? Does it still have a voice? That we're going to look at and delve into it with the ANC Youth League chairperson in the Northwest Province, Wessels Mureng. And flanking me also is the PC member, Pilisha Tswenu. Welcome, welcome, and we'll have a lively audience. Welcome, comrades. All right, that's a good start, and welcome, Wessels Mureng, as the chairperson of the ANC Youth League. I'm sure you've had a crux of what the issues are on the ground, particularly some of the young people who have raised them with your good selves.
No, thank you very much, Luther. Let me take this opportunity to greet you and greet your wonderful audience. Indeed, we have looked at the video where young people across the province, they've raised concerns from the socio-economic conditions in the province to the issue of gender-based violence. Of course, emanating from the issue of unemployment, you can't leave out the issue of crime. It has also been raised. But you can't speak of young people and not speak of sports and recreation. It has also been one of the major concerns that young people have raised, particularly also providing solutions to the ANC-led government, that we also need to look into the issue of trying to bring sponsors into the force.
Let me also thank you very much for this opportunity and greet the wonderful audience that we have here. Comrade Chairperson of the Youth League, it's quite a privilege for me to be with you here today. The issue of stability was for a long time a concern and a real thorn in the flesh of the organization. The movement as a whole was torn apart, if you can use that word, because of the instability that came with a whole lot of disengagement, disagreements, fightings, and so forth and so on. As a result, we as the province had to endure a very long time of having to operate the affairs of the organization and the movement with what you call task teams, the IPC after another, and so we are very delighted that eventually sanity had to prevail, that the people of the Northwest had to speak and identify men and women of the African National Congress to take the baton and lead the province. In that regard, if I can just quickly go to the issues pertaining to the unity that we are hard at work fostering and building as a province. We have, from the onset, tasked ourselves with a task or responsibility of ensuring that we make structures of the ANC to be constitutional. As much as we were decrying the issue of us having interim structures at the provincial level, we had to sit down and put plans and systems in place to ensure that we begin to ensure that structures of the ANC are in place. You would also know, Anka, that in terms of our constitution, you need to have certain layers of structures of the ANC. You do not operate at a vacuum. So we are glad to announce that we have had to establish regional structures. They are in place, they are constitutional structure. We are implementing also the decisions of the national structure of the ANC, which primarily was to ensure that we build cohesion and unity in the province. All of us in the country, all provinces, the major task and responsibility is to forge unity, to build cohesion, to ensure that we inculcate in our structures as we launch them the good principles and the correct politics of the African National Congress.
Let me just shift the focus a bit. Now that we look into the issues of young people, it's particularly the issue of unemployment, We look at some of the young graduates who have to endure long hours on queues without hope. As the ANC Youth League, through your lens, what do you understand of the status quo?
The Youth League, together with other PYA structures, its sister PYA component, COSAS, as well as the South African Student Congress, SASCO, they have embarked on what we call Right to Learn campaign. With this campaign, primarily we want to make sure that we deal with the issue of students being rejected, wherein we make sure that there is access to access the institution of higher learning, especially the children that come from the poor background. It is for that reason, Luther, that we are very proud as the African National Congress Youth League that we managed to influence the African National Congress-led government that there must be a bursary that is set aside to make sure that it primarily deals with this issue of access. But also on the issue of the skills, before I step off on that important aspect, we will recall that we are a mining province. Last year when we dealt with this bursary, that was our focus because that's where we want to go. But not only that, the issue of agriculture, we want to become the food basket of the country as the Northwest Province. So that was our focus while we are addressing this issue of learners accessing the system through our Right to Learn campaign. So we're also looking at those aspects that will be able to be beneficial to us as the African National Congress firstly, and as the society in general.
Yeah, the issue of people that have to endure long hours on the queues, I understand. I've been traveling for a lot for some time now, that you've dispatched some of the activists, some of the party members in universities and colleges. How far off are we in terms of that approach having to be effective in assisting all these learners?
Yeah, we have set aside our stalls in various institutions of higher learning. As you know that last week we were closing the campaign in as far as basic education is concerned, and we are also happy on that aspect because we must not only speak of higher education, even the basic education, we are happy on that aspect. Our ANC-led deployee, Comrade Viola Mutsumi and the team, and as also as all other comrades that were supporting the program, they've done very well to make sure that the young people, they access classes. There were not many incidents that distracted the teaching and learning. Young people are in class. The feeding scheme that is provided by the ANC-led government, it is there. The transport that is provided by the Department of Transport in as far as the issue of buses. Now we have moved into the second phase of the campaign, which is to deal with access to institutions of higher learning. We have set our stalls in various institutions of higher learning, firstly, to make sure that we get the issues of young people that are concerning them, and also we show them around and orientate them on around the important offices that must be able to assist them. But importantly also through our National Executive Committee of the African National Congress to exert pressure to the Minister of Higher Education, Comrade Blade Nzimande, to make sure that there's amendments in as far as the issue of NSFAS policy is concerned. You would recall that previously there were NSFAS will make sure that when in its criteria a certain student,
it was a loan, now it's a fully
it's a fully fledged bursary.
Yeah.
So those were the strides that we have made as the PYA, as the NEC of the Youth League, exerting the necessary pressure to Minister Blade Nzimande.
West University, for instance, said that they had about 28 million applications. They can only afford to accept 40,000. And that is an issue that is engulfing all the campuses. Through your lens, what's your perspective on that? As the ANC Youth League in the Northwest, and who are also in helping the Northwest students to go to other universities across the country.
As the ANC Youth League and as the ANC-led government, we keep up with the ever-changing times. There's an issue of the fourth industrial revolution, wherein we need to also encourage young people to consider the issue of an online learning that will also coincide with what we want to achieve with entrepreneurial skills that we want to build in our communities. I can imagine a situation whereby, Luther, you are also studying online, but you are also having a business, a smaller business.
Moonlighting elsewhere.
Yeah, on the side that you are trying to push. This will coincide very well once you also complete the skill that you are busy with at the university. So for us as the ANC Youth League, of course, it will be the issue of making sure that there is quite a number of young people that pursue the option of an online learning. The other option, of course, Luther, we will exert the necessary pressure to the African National Congress to build more universities so that they can be accessed. But importantly, there must be transformation in as far as the higher education is concerned. Some of the institutions, you spoke of VEDS, you speak of the Northwest University, they are still not yet transformed. The issue of racism is still a rampant culture in those universities where you find that black students, they are being excluded, black marginalized students, they are being excluded with priority being given to a certain race.
Yeah, it's an issue of disenfranchisations that we see protruding mainly not only in the Northwest Province but in the country. It appears that the Youth League on the side is catapulting the interest of the young people. As ANC, how much pressure are you in now to ensure that all this interest, now that we go into the eagerly awaited national polls, are achieved through the policies that you are now pushing in government?
Basically, from what the chairperson is saying, the ANC is part of and parcel of ensuring that these programs that they put on the table and put in place are implemented. Our responsibility is to support the Youth League of the ANC and other leagues of the ANC, particularly on the issues that the chairperson has raised on the issue of education. It's of paramount importance for the ANC that young people must actually be schooled and get the necessary qualifications.
Now it seems that the delivery of services has been expedited. How then do we ensure that as we go to the voter registration weekend and beyond, you harvest all these people that see the party as the only vanguard party that can take their interest forward?
So as the ruling party, obviously, we are also ecstatic to note some of the milestones in terms of managing crises after crisis and ensuring that there are certain spin-offs. You would recall that recently there was a program of our government, of the government of the ANC in the Northwest, program, where efforts were made to ensure that we speed up or intensify the manner in which we eradicate service delivery blockages. In the past, we used to expect that when anything needs to happen in a village or in a ward, the African National Congress had a mantra that you must always consultation. So it's very key that you don't just consult. You consult, you carry out the mandate, you go back and implement the mandate, but you must go back and feedback whether you have been able to achieve the mandate or whether there were challenges. So basically, in as far as the coming polls are concerned, linked to the question that you raised earlier on, we are hard at work. We are hard at work in trying to ensure that the ANC comes victorious out of the polls. We have set out systems. We have an elections machinery which is properly oiled, as I'm sitting here. We have men and women, particularly in the province, in our villages, in our wards, in our cities, all over the province, who are ready and willing to give of their time. Remember, when you join the ANC, you take an oath that you'll give of your time, your abilities, your skills, and everything to the betterment of the organization.
I want to give him a bite of a chair now because I can see he's growing agitated. It's your forte. I know how much you have invested your time as the ANC Youth League in terms of harvesting young people's vote. I want you to look at the camera now and say to a person who has never voted for the ANC, why must they vote for the ANC? Why must they register and then vote for the ANC?
Firstly, it stands for nothing else but for the betterment of the life of the people. And not only of a certain group, but all the people in South Africa, irrespective of their gender or their race. But of key importance, Luther, is to look at the achievement that the African National Congress has brought in a period of 30 years, reversing the trajectory that was there for over 300 years. And then the African National Congress has worked very hard to make sure that in a period of 30 years, they reverse that inhuman system that was very regressive in its nature. The African National Congress, it has provided a conducive environment for the private sector to flourish. It has provided stability into our country. Our people are able to access good health care.
Yeah.
Our people are able to access good, clean water. You will recall that water is a basic human right, and let alone not forgetting the issue of education that is very, very important. We just spoke about NSFAS that has been changed from a loan to now a bursary, a fully fledged bursary, wherein anyone, irrespective of your background, you can be able to access that. Right here, seated here, I'm a product of that NSFAS. I'm a child of a miner who was earning less than 5,000 with 4 of us.
Yeah.
But I was able to access, me and my brothers, we were able to access that NSFAS. You, Luther, from where you are seated, you are a product of the very same NSFAS, which is the brain of the African National Congress. So I can speak until tomorrow.
And many people do not know that the risk of taking ANC out of power, those benefits can be torpedoed.
If you want to take that unconscious,
by not voting or even
regressive
participating,
decision of firstly voting against the ANC or sitting down and not taking part in this important democratic process, of course, you are basically saying a mother in Sigalikeke who have just benefited from the African National Congress, a house, a fully fledged house, a mother who's getting grant every month from the African National Congress. You are saying that mother must forfeit that. I know of families who are dependent on this grant. Basically, you are saying to us that such must fade away. I know of I just spoke of a NSFAS beneficiary. You are just basically saying that those things must just be taken away by chance takers that are going around promising people things that are not even tangible. So it will be an accident of history for young people not to consider voting out the African National Congress or sitting down not going to vote.
Some will say, I only vote because nothing changes, or some will say, no, there are too many parties, there are splinters. Why must people go vote, register to vote this weekend?
It's very important, comrade, that we encourage everybody to go and register, because one, it is the last registration weekend before the actual polls, which are going to be announced by the president. We will not be able, as the African National Congress, to deliver and implement on all the policies, including those the chairperson has spoken about, if we do not have people who participate in the democratic process of deciding and voting for the ANC. He has illustrated the ramifications up to so far. I will not dwell much into them, but it's imperative and important for us to encourage our communities, our parents, particularly the young people. It's not true that there is youth apathy. We need to entrench what we are trying to do so that we meet the young people halfway in terms of what they are expecting us to deliver on.
You talk of young people. I see Comrade Mhlomi has got his hand raised, and I'll go to Comrade Tiamo after that, in that order.
No, thanks very much. I think I do not have a question necessarily, but a comment and to impress upon a point of the importance really of the youth and young people voting, actually registering to vote. You'd understand that our democracy is a democracy that was that we really fought for as a country. Many people were exiled, many people died, many people participated in this, and they left their families and everything. So the most important thing why we need to vote is because out of those fights, we got something called a constitution that gives us the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights that gives us the right to participate in politics, that gives us political rights.
Yeah.
Now it is important for young people to participate in making up of a government, because this government should be a government that represents their interest. Now it is really important, and we want to impress upon the fact that young people must really register to vote, but most importantly, vote for the African National Congress. Thank you.
Very powerful commentary. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. Let's welcome Comrade Tiamo.
Thank you very much. I am not rising to ask any question. I just want to bring to the fore some of the interventions which the ANC Youth League has been able to do in order for it to drive a view that says young people in the province must be taken serious. And in that same breath, applaud the ANC to say that to a large extent they've been able to respond to that. One of the things that we would have said was that you can't have a system whereby only old people are placed in government and are expected to take charge or take responsibility over the interest of young people.
Yeah.
And as a response to that, we have been able to successfully lobby the ANC to install at least 6 young mayors across the province in various municipalities. We still believe that the administration also must have young people who are part as the directors, as the HODs, and so forth, so that they can be able to relate quite easily with the interest of young people. Look, young people constitute a larger contingent of the population of South Africa, and we are not mincing our words when we say, including the manifesto of the ANC, must express serious biasness towards improving the living conditions of young people, but as well as nurturing them as the layer that will take over the affairs of the country moving forward. The Youth League has had a program such as Adibuele Bagayesu. Adibuele Bagayesu campaign was a campaign that was saying to the ANC-led government that you can't have so many government infrastructure dilapidating when it's supposed to be used by young people. One, you'd remember that in Rustenburg there's a stadium called Olympia Park Stadium. It ran a risk of being a white elephant, but now it's used by a football team from the Northwest in a form of Orbit, which is now in the 2nd division of our league. When they take advantage of the online learning system, you need to understand that these are people who are just fresh from pre-tertiary level, where they're used to a system where they're in the class, and then they come out of the class and so forth. How do you create an environment that can be accommodative of what is it that they've gotten used to? But why do you have a problem with that when you have many middle schools which have closed, which have been met? I mean, that is an infrastructure that is not being used. Why don't you get people who have graduated in those fields to at least lecture these people in whatever field that they are in within those very same infrastructure of college, of middle schools and so forth, which are all over our classes, and they are not used. Not only for that purpose, you can use it for many other reasons, and that is why we're saying, you can't have an infrastructure which was built out of the sweat and the cost of the public purse, and later on allow it to rot. The last thing which we would have wanted to raise is that you can't deal with advocacy of youth interest and not put emphasis on the question of sports and arts and culture. Because that is an area which actually helps to address many societal problems and social problems that we have. We need to focus in resuscitating the school sports, focus in resuscitating the sports in the communities, and these are the engagements which we're having with the ANC, and the ANC is beginning to listen quite decisively on that. I would have wanted to speak about the special economic zone, how it's going to absorb young people into the job market to address the unemployment, but let me pause there.
Maybe to take note, there's a first installation. We'll have so many. We'll delve into issues around unemployment in details. We'll talk about issues of how you plan to deal with corruption, how you tend to deal with the perception that is existing. All other issues, I think, will be delved. We'll demystify some of these issues in details. Let's take another one, Sindiswe. Comrade Sindiswe.
Thank you very much, Comrade Enka. I'm standing up to just say, can the panel just please us and speak more on what is the ANC government doing? What is the ANC Youth League as an organization and the ANC doing to ensure that we really get rid of this and also empower these women, that we are finding them as victims of this situation? That is all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A round of applause. I think that's a... Thank you. I think it's an important question. You'll have a bite of a cherry, but let me start with you. I know that you've been pursuing some of different programs in different communities to ensure that you nip this problem in the bud.
We have been very clear with as the African National Congress. Firstly, standing firmly against this gender-based violence. The recent example, it is the issue of an education to men to understand, because the issue of gender-based violence, you also can't detach it to what has been misconstrued as the cultural perspective. You would recall that our culture, in some instances, it has given men more power, or should I say, it has been misinterpreted. That is also a teaching that we must inculcate into men, especially young men, when they start to grow up, to understand that there's no such a thing as that dominance. They need to understand what we are preaching in the African National Congress as the equality, because in the African National Congress we preach 50-50. In fact, we are preaching more women taking the center stage than men.
ANC, you are in government. The sketch, it's now been described as a pandemic. It tells you how we are in a vortex of problems.
That is why you hear the chairperson talking about education.
Yeah.
It's quite important that we shift from the patriarchal mentality and move the nation, all of it, to the equality program.
We come into an end of our first podcast, but before then, I want you to look at the camera, tell the youth why they have to go register. The machine is oiled, the machinery is moving, we are all going to register.
No, thank you very much, Luther, for having us into your beautiful podcast. This weekend is a very big weekend in our country. We are going to register to vote the African National Congress, the organization that has existed since 1912. We've been in power since 1994, and people must go out there and make sure that through their vote, firstly, they strengthen democracy. Secondly, they give the African National Congress another opportunity to continue delivering to our people. Don't forget, this coming weekend, take your ID, go to your nearest voting station, and make sure that you register to vote for the African National Congress.
And they mustn't listen to some counter-revolutionary bourgeoisie that we've seen crisscrossing the province here. Your last bite?
Indeed. The future is us. That is the mantra that as young people we should be moving forward. Go out in your numbers, take your ID, books with, and go and register. It's quite important, those of us who are able to register online, register online, also spread the message. Spread the message. It should not end with you and your household as young people. Speak to your neighbors' children and their children's children somewhere there in the colleges. Everybody must go out and register to vote for the ANC.
And that's how we wrap it. Viva ANC, viva! Viva! Viva ANC Youth League, viva!
Viva!
Over and out.